everyone. Welcome to On the Ground with Nadia. Oh, that's me, of course, here on the Life with Impact podcast. And today it is my profound honor to introduce you to a special guest. Robert Benjamin has served as an executive producer of Angels, They Are Among Us, the acclaimed South African feature film arriving in cinemas on the 24th of July. Under his guidance, the film has earned an impressive run on the international festival circuit, picking up wins for Best Feature Film and Best Director at the Halo International Film Festival in St. Petersburg, Russia, as well as Best Spiritual Mystical Film at the Remember the Future Film Festival in Cannes, France. The film's accolades extend further still, with Best Actor win in St. Petersburg, an honorable mention for Top 3 Director from Athens International Monthly Art Film Festival in Athens, and nominations for Best Inspirational Film in the USA. Best Cinematography in London Director Movie Awards UK. It has also earned official selection honors for Best Family-Friendly Film in the UK and Best Feature Film at International Christian Film Festival in Florida, United States, alongside critical praise, describing the film as phenomenal from Arizona's Faith, Hope and Love Film Festival. With this growing list of international honors behind it, Angels, They Are Among Us arrives in cinemas on the 24th of July in South Africa under Robert Benjamin's executive production, a film already resonating with audiences and critics alike. But the man Robert Benjamin has been in the film industry since 1992 and brings 35 years of experience. He has been working in the movie industry as a director, assistant director, editor, writer, and producer. In 1991, while studying drama at the University of Cape Town, he wrote, directed, and produced his first play entitled Gangsters at the Cape Town's Little Theatre, receiving rave reviews. Robert wrote, directed, and produced his first feature, The Ghost, aka Angel Valley, at the age of 26. The movie was picked up by Mnet Cable TV and premiered in 1998. It was also screened on SABC1 in 2001 as Angel Valley. He wrote, directed, and produced the romantic film Lost Souls, starring Kevin Otto, which was also picked up by Mnet Cable and premiered in 2000. Robert then worked with Leon Reitenbach, who was the head of Mnet Productions for a couple of years, while developing screenplays. Between 2000 and 2010, Robert worked on international and local features and commercials as a first assistant director and as a producer since 2011. Robert, an award-winning filmmaker, is heading the production and distribution company Studio RSA Films. He's the writer, director, and producer of the feature Angels, They Are Among Us. Robert Benjamin, you're so welcome. It's such a privilege to have you here today.
Thank you very much. I'm very happy to be here, and a big hello to all your listeners.
Robert, that's quite the introduction and many accomplishments, but surely there's more to the person behind all the production and accomplishments. If we say Robert Benjamin's, who is the man truly?
I'm a dreamer. I think it all started at school. You know when you're in primary school and you have all these dreams about you're going to be that one day and you're going to be that one day, and it's like, so it was like, the one thing was like, well, two things I wanted to do was being a lawyer, being a doctor. And then when I got to high school, there was something that just got me about telling stories. It started with jokes, obviously, everybody telling jokes, and then stories, and I wrote a couple of stories back. That's just now, like, wow, we're talking 1985, 1988, high school, and I had a wonderful, actually, primary principal, who would allow me to come, and that was in the early 90s, when computers just came out, he would allow me to come and sit in his study that was really inside of his house, working there till 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock on his lap, on his computer to write my stories, my handwritten stories. And I would leave his house at 4 o'clock in the morning and go home. But today he's not with us anymore. His name is Stanley Brown. And he was a big inspiration for allowing me to chase my dreams when everybody else was like, you gotta get a real job, you gotta get a real job.
Yeah. Real
And,
job.
and,
Yeah.
and a real job, yes, a 9 to 5, or 8 to 5 or whatever they called it, and I wanted to tell stories. I wanted to make movies, and when I finished high school, I tried very hard to get into a film school and I couldn't, and eventually ended up at UCT 1990, 1991. And I was studying a BA degree with drama and languages, and I was also doing parallel to that diploma in drama, more theater at UCT. In my second year, I spent a lot of time in the theater trying to get my first project off the ground, um, and very little in class. But it was also part of the reason was really that I kind of knew that they're not going to allow me to write my June exams because I was still outstanding fees from the previous year, and I had no way of finding money to pay my previous year's fees. And those days, they were very strict if your fees weren't paid at university. So I
Mm.
used a lot of that second year to do the stage play. And when I got rave reviews, it was like, I remember the Cape Times review and the Argus review. For me, it was, maybe I can do what I wanted to do, because that was the first professional thing that I ended up doing. And so when I left university, I ended up working as a coffee boy. There was a woman at SABC. Her name was Rosa Keat, Afrikaans lady. And I was sending her emails and emails. No, not emails. It was like phone calls back then about, please, can you just give me some work? Can you just give me some work? I'm writing, and I want to be in the TV and film industry. And eventually she came back and she said, there's a company down in Cape Town called Waterfront Television, run by Herman Binger. I want to ask them to just give you a job. Doesn't matter what it is, Robert, you take it. And so I ended up with them, and they were doing a 13-part TV show, and I ended up as a coffee boy. I was carrying everybody's coffee. And Herman Binger, who was the owner of the company, told me that he was a lawyer and he ended up working in the industry now. And his first job was also, he was from a lawyer to a coffee boy on a film set, and and experience is very important in our industry. So for me, starting at the bottom, and today I'm still very happy about it. Starting at the bottom, because you get to see everything that's happening on the ground. So when you get to producing, you understand what's going on. You didn't jump to producing. Nobody can come and tell you this is the problem and we can't fix it. It's like, it can be fixed.
Mm.
But so I worked for about 4 years. I think the year before I made my first movie, I worked on as an assistant director on a TV show, a Canadian TV show that was shooting here in South Africa, called Sinbad the Sailor here in Cape Town. And so I worked on it, and I saved all that money, and I made my first movie. So that is how it started, back from school to university to my first years in the industry as a coffee boy, and then how I ended up making my movie. Actually, I have to mention this. Kevin van der Berg and Bo Peterson starred in my first movie, and it was just by working as an AD. So you end up talking a lot to the actors, and then you're like asking them, I've got this movie. Don't you want to come and play in it? I don't have money. I don't have money,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
don't you want to come? In Gavin van der Berg, and I see still, like, I've been trying to track him down. I can't get hold of him, but like, he has always been so hungry to work, and if I think about it, like how I saw him for the first time in Ballade for Enkelen, back in the 80s, And and he said to me, "Yes, yes, let's make this movie." And then it happened, and then Paul Peterson came in, and she was working with me. We shot the movie in 3 weeks, you know,
Hmm.
and that's what that, And I think after doing the first two movies, in which I sold it to Mnet, I decided not to make another movie if I don't at least have enough money to make it. Um, so that's why my third project is now only releasing in 2026, but there is a
Yeah.
huge story behind this. And so should I tell you the story behind this one
Well, I
now?
mean, we're
This
going
is
to get to that. Yeah, we're going to get to
okay.
Angels,
Okay.
because
Okay.
that's, primarily what we're going to be discussing today is the movie that you've put out. But what I just want to mention is from listening to you just tell about your background and where you come from, and relating that to so many other people and the way that they also tell their stories. One thing is evident. We sometimes make the mistake of thinking that we can accomplish things in life without people. Like, if I just do my best, I will succeed. I will climb that ladder and I will get out on top. But it's evident from listening to you right now and speaking to so many people, you have the teacher that allowed you to come and dream in his house, explore those imaginations that you were having. And of course you engaged with actors. Having to risk saying to an actor, I mean, being a nobody, right? Like, you had to take that risk, like, hey, will you come and act for me, and not and not being scared of rejection. I mean, that actor could say, "Hey, I'm very important. You're not, so no." But you risk it, and so you along the line, there are people that invest in your dreams, but never without some cost or risk to yourself. You have to step out in faith and chase that dream. And another thing that stands out for me is the fact that you kept on dreaming. And like you just say, it's now your third project, and you just made up your mind. You're not going to do it unless you don't have the funds to do it. And I have to be honest with you. I think that's where a lot of dreams die, because there's not funds for those dreams. But dreams don't happen because you pay for them. They happen because you pursue them with everything. You remain persistent and you don't give up on them, And so that's beautiful when listening to your story. That's what I take from that. Yeah, so thank you for sharing that.
There was a movie back in 2008 I was going to do. Again, just talking about money, how money can just stop you from achieving your dreams. I had Terrence Howard. It's a movie called Shadows. It's a spy thriller that I want to do. Terrence Howard, Isaiah Washington. Um, there's another actor now. His name I can't get to now, right? But like, I had these actors attached to a project, and I was going to direct this movie in 2008. And then the whole financial crisis happened, and equity just left the market. The 2008, where the big housing scandal, financial crisis, all of that, and we lost everything. We lost everything because we put everything that we own back then was kind of in it, going towards that movie. And because we believed it's going to happen, we had all these big actors, we had distribution in place, and then the equity couldn't come through because the equity was the most important part. It was about 30-40% of the money, and
Hmm.
the movie never happened. So I'm hoping that it could happen next year, but obviously not with the same actors now. It's almost 2 decades later. The, one of the actors have died, and then the other two are much older now. But those things happen, and the other movie would have happened in 2008, but then because of the money, it didn't happen, and that put me back quite a bit. It was a recovery time of like 10 years, of getting out of that mess. And just when I thought it's going to happen, a few other things happened, and COVID happened, and But there's a lot of detail that I will go into when I'm talk about angels. But yeah, money can hold you back. I mean, my first movie,
Mm.
to be very honest with you, my first movie, I had 40,000 rand that I saved on Sinbad the Sailor. I had 40,000 rand. And I was yeah, asking the actors to work for no money was a big one, first of all. And I shot it at just something that I didn't mention. So my mother's from District 6 back then, right? My grandfather and my mother. And then when the whole move out of District 6, my grandfather decided he's not going to go to the Cape Flats. My grandfather decided he's going to stay in a town called Creighton, which is about 140 kilometers from Cape Town. And my mother, and I was born there. And then we moved to Grabouw, and that is where I went to school. Um, so I just wanted you to know about that. So because I grew up in Grabouw, beautiful, beautiful town, back in the 80s and 70s, surrounded by mountains, just green wherever you see. I made my first movie there in the mountains, and I wanted to shoot it at this country club. And I remember the chairman back then didn't want me to shoot it because he asked me, how much money do I have? And I said, I've got 40,000 rand to make this movie. And he says, you can't make a movie for 40,000 rand. And it was such a disappointment. But then God gave him a holiday in Europe. So when he left, the rest of the board said, you can shoot this movie here. And so we shot the movie in 3 weeks at this country club in the mountains. And so yeah, with 40,000 rand, we made that first movie, and so you bolt on it. And then when I thought, like, I'm going to make this big movie with Terrence Howard in 2008, didn't happen. It didn't happen. So yeah, that was very sad.
Yeah. Before we go on to angels, we're gonna get there, I promise you. But I have to dig deeper. I want you to tell me what does success look like to you? If you think about, if you
Oh,
come to a point and you say, "My life has been successful," what do you mean by that? What is success for you?
see, now I need to bring angels in, the beginning of angels. So I got married in 2002. So there's a thing where you think you've made it, that kind of success, right? And that is what I need to tell you right now, because to put everything in perspective here, I got married in 2002. I thought I made it. I grew up, in my mind, poor. My dad was the only one in that street who didn't have a car. You know, um, we know what it was like to not have food, if I can put it that way. So when I got married, I had a couple of properties back then. I had a couple of nice cars. Um, and getting married, and it's like it's a new season. Life is going to happen, right? And I've got these two movies behind me now. And okay, before I need to tell you what exactly happened when that question came into my life, two things happened in the year of 2002 to 2003. I'm I'm coming back from a film set, and as I'm driving into the driveway, I'm seeing an angel standing at my front door. And this is the first time I'm seeing something like that. And and I had to look back to make sure I'm not going into a wall here as I'm making my turn. But when I looked back in the blink of a moment, it was missing. You know, imagination, let's move on. Then one morning, I'm coming down the stairs. There's an angel standing at my front door on the inside. And and I looked down because I was now afraid I was gonna fall down the stairs because the moment was too big. And I looked back at the door and it's missing. And imagination left it. A year from that, 2003, I'm like a Samuel. I hear my voice. I hear somebody. I hear a voice that's calling my name, Robert. And immediately think about Samuel. That is God calling me. So I went to the other room. It's around 2 o'clock in the morning. I lie down and put my face into the carpet. And I said, God, you called me. And I hear a voice that was so clear. It it altered my whole life. You gotta give me a moment here. I was asked, are you are you prepared to lose everything? Are you prepared to lose everything for my namesake? I knew it was God talking to me. And the moment was real. And I thought, I made it. And God comes and asks me if I'm prepared to give up everything. Because it, yeah, the repercussions of that answer was, but I didn't answer. Because to me, it was too big what he was asking me. Because I was lying there and it's like, God, I grew up poor. I've accumulated these things. Why would you ask me something like this? That is what was going through my mind. That is not what I was saying to God at that point. But I knew obviously he knows what is going on in my mind. So I got up and I went to bed. It took me a whole week to tell my wife, this is the experience that I had, and this is what God asked me. Now, you are a female yourself. You are a wife, right? And
Yes.
yeah. So our men, and this is maybe something comical in a way, always look at how females tell a story or reason about something. And when you tell a story, you will go into all the detail that is there. Men will only give you the main points. And I
The
needed my
highlights.
wife that day when I needed my wife that day to be that woman that takes very long to get to a point, to debate it, and even to tell me that what you heard was wrong. God will never ask you that. And so when I told her, she replied with, then you know what you need to do. And I'm standing there and I'm, why are you not a woman today? Why are you not a wife today? I needed you to be a wife today, not to give me the short answer. But I realized that she was giving me a blessing, which means that whatever happens, we're going to be in it together. So I went back and I said, God, I'm prepared to lose everything for your name's sake. Now, me in my flesh, I thought it was a test. God is not going to take all these things away. I just need to say yes. Wow. Another year later, 2004, God asked me, will you now change or will you turn your work around and glorify me in your work? And that was an easy one. Yes, Lord, of course, no problem. And I had a screenplay called Beyond Anger about a teacher who goes to a reform school that was lying there since 1998. And I decided to turn that screenplay into what is today Angels. They are amongst us. But then 2005 happened, and we still had all our properties, we still had everything, you know. Um, we made a business deal, and where we were going to acquire more properties. We sold the one property that we were staying in, and we went to go and work on a project up in Johannesburg for about a year. When we came back, that deal never went through, and that was the beginning of things that were just going. By 2008, when we thought we're going to get out of it, we're going to make this movie Shadows with these big um, American actors. That didn't work out, and we went even deeper. Um, but at the same time, I was trying to help God to find the funds to make this other movie, Beyond Anger, now known as Angels. And the money just didn't come in. And I remember we had a business plan that was put together for a film city that was going to be built in the city of Ekurhuleni. And the city council approved it. It took a lot of years to get that thing to that point where they said yes to it. And I thought, okay, now it's going to happen. 2018, and this movie is going to happen now. And then they had a line in the city council resolution which says that we can build, and the money was going to come from Mauritius to build this huge film city in the city of Ekurhuleni. They were going to give the land and everything, and there was a line in there because the investors wanted for 30 to 60, 60 to 99 years, and the city said you can have it for 30 years, but after 30 years, you need to apply for the lease on this land again. And if council decides that they will not give you this land for another 30 years, then the land and everything that is built on it, which was at that point 3 billion, was the idea, will have to come back to council or to government without compensation. And the investors said, no ways. And they left. In 2018, that happened. And in 2019, I said to the Lord, I'm going to step back. I'm going to stop trying to help you find the funds for this movie. Because I know what I was doing was wrong. Because when God wants to do something, all the honor goes to Him. It's 100% Him. And what I'm about to share with you in this last 7 years, what God has done, amazing, amazing stuff. It's like a miracle after miracle after miracle, not without pain though. Um, but as I said that in 2019, my world came tumbling down on me. The whole ceiling came down because I thought now me saying that to the Lord would mean, yes, it's going to happen now. Suddenly the work dried up because I was doing a lot of freelance work for other people. And we got evicted from where we were staying in Johannesburg. And there was a whole bunch of friends who helped me. 2 years went past. And in 2021, I'm getting a call. And it is somebody was asking me, Robert, you still producing? Do you want to use some music? You know, my boss got a label. He wants to would love to get his music into television productions, and you guys don't have to pay for it. And I ended up meeting with the boss of this label. And somehow, 2 weeks later, that same man paid 7 figures into my business account to make this movie Angels. You know,
Wow.
that came with a phone call from someone that I didn't know. So he puts the money into my account. But here it is. But it tells me 3 months ago. This is now 2021. He pays the money into the end of 2021. We start production at the beginning of 2022. And a lot of the money would have come from government in 2022. And it's like the second time government is like really messing up what I'm busy with, right? But there are reasons behind it, and sometimes I understand, sometimes I don't. we signed a contract with government that is complete. That the CEO, the COO, I signed. We start shooting in March, and then towards the end of March, we had to stop shooting because government money didn't come through, even though there was a signed contract in place. It took them 3.5 years to do an internal investigation, because first they were telling the crew there's no contract, and the crew was extremely upset with me about what was going on. They say there's no contract. Then somebody sent me the internal investigation report where they say the reason why they're not going to pay out the money to Angels, which was also in the 7 figures, is because there was a signature, a witness initial signature was missing, while everybody else have signed. Now, lawyers said to me, I can go after them and I can get the money, and like I don't even have money to pay the lawyer, so I can't pursue them. Having said that, it took them 4 years from that period to finish the movie. Because of that, we had to stop. It took me a year and a half to go back and shoot the last 30% of the movie. But the year that I that we had to stop in 2022 in March, my dad died a few months after that, very suddenly. And then about 6 weeks after my dad died, I had a stroke, which was stress related. And I was in hospital in Port Elizabeth while I was working on this job, and when it happened, and I was lying there the first night in the ER. It was semi-paralyzed. I could walk, but my left leg was like, I need to pull it. My left arm was hanging. There was no strength in my left arm. This part was hanging. I was speaking like a drunken sailor because of what has happened. And they wanted to put me into an ICU. And they wanted me to sign for 96 or 97,000 rand at this hospital for 2 nights. And I said to them, no. And there was a reason why I said no. First of all, I think they were ridiculous to ask me that. Secondly, is like, this is between me and God. I, that night, was wrestling with Father. I said to him, this is not going to happen like this. I'm not going to die. I'm not going to go into ICU. I'm going to walk out here tomorrow morning because you asked me to do something and it's not completed. That means that whatever happens here now, this is not the end. The next morning, I had to sign paperwork. A friend of mine flew all the way from Joburg down to Port Elizabeth just to be there waiting for me at the door. And I walked out of there with a leg that I was pulling, an arm that was hanging, with a BP of 188 over 111. I walked out of that hospital, and I was, and for me, it was, God, you're going to heal me. And it was healing that took place very, very, very quickly. Because 2 weeks later, I could do things that I could drive a car from Port Elizabeth to Cape Town. I could walk. Like a lot of things just happened. Then, 5 months after that, just after Easter, we're back in Port Elizabeth on a job, on this job that it has been on since November the previous year, since 2022. And there's an attempted hijacking. My wife, my 2 children with me in Port Elizabeth. We got away, but we were rattled. And it's like, why is this happening? Why all these attacks? 4 months after that, I'm working for somebody in Durban. And this is me working, trying to get money so that we can finish the movie. I'm working with this person, and I'm entering Durban CBD. And we stopped at the traffic light. I stopped at the traffic light. This time my wife and my children were with me. And there were cars all around me. In the next moment, there was a gang around the car. And this guy came through the window. While the window was still breaking, the other guy was throwing a brick on the left-hand side. And they took everything with me. that was with me at that moment. And the robot turned green and everybody was driving. And I understood that moment that this is South Africa. I do not expect people to get off the cars to help me because they will get hurt. It wasn't one or two, it was a whole gang. And after a kilometer, I stopped. I cried. I looked at this car on both sides. I couldn't believe what just happened. And then the voice was there again. They can take everything, Robert. They're not going to take your life. And that was that kind of peace, you know, that you cannot explain. It surpasses all understanding. And I got to trust God in it. It was never about the material things that we owe, you know. It's about knowing who's in your life, who's protecting you, um, who loves you. Um, uh, but that was a hard one that evening because I remember I eventually arrived home, and when my wife opened the door, there was like blood all over me because of the window that broke and fell on me, and I went immediately to the other room. Sorry, and to the bedroom, and I didn't want my kids to see me like that. But they said afterwards, "We saw, but we knew you didn't want us to see, so they stayed back." And I told my wife what happened. So we realized also at that point that the battle is not against flesh and blood, but there are spiritual forces. That's, you know, we're just going to trust God. We're going to believe more than ever with all these attacks that's coming against us. We know we needed to finish this movie. So to answer the question about what it means when you have success, I had to go and tell you this whole story. Because first I thought success is about having all these material things. But God has showed me that if you have nothing, but you have Him, you have everything. And that is how we started to live. Of course, with everything happening to us, we had many friends and some family members who felt that I was doing something wrong in my life, that God took away all these things from me. And I think that was one of the sad moments, the sad things that happened in my life, that people tried to distance themselves from me because they felt God's punishing me because I live a life that is not unto Him. And that was, it cut hard and deep. But in all of this, to this very day right now, there are 5 people that I count on my one hand who I can still call friends, because when it went well, I had many, and my phone never stopped ringing back then. And when you had nothing, they all disappeared. But it's okay, because the peace I get from having a relationship with Yahweh,
Mm.
having a relationship with Yeshua, that is what kept me sane. Because at one point, even somebody asked me, with everything that has happened, Robert, have you ever thought about suicide? And I thought, like, I never, ever thought about suicide. But ever since he said that, you kind of think about it, but it was never an option. I just want to say that it was never an option. And that was purely because of my relationship that I had with God. But this is what happened. So after what happened in Durban to me, at that point, we had enough money in Durban. Um, and the main cast, or not the main cast was sort of out of Durban, but there was a lot of other people in Durban that I was using in smaller parts. I could actually finish the movie there. The guy that I was working for allowed me to go and shoot the movie during the time that I was working for him. So we shot the movie. And I ended up editing the movie because I had no money to pay an editor. It wasn't my plan. I felt like I was close enough. When the movie was finished, I was sitting with a dilemma. I didn't have money for the visual effects. I didn't have money for the orchestral score that I really wanted. And then God comes and he does the following. I get an email all the way from Hollywood. This guy stays in LA. He's a composer. He says, Robert, I see you making this movie. I'm very interested in doing the music for you. I said to him, I've got a problem. The reason why the movie is now still standing still is because government didn't pay out on the incentive, so I can't pay you. He says to me, don't worry about the payment. Pay me afterwards. And so he and I, for a couple of months, he's doing the score. He's in LA. We're sitting from 9 o'clock in the evening till 2 o'clock in the morning. We're listening to the music, where this goes, where that goes. And he's doing this orchestral score. And I think when you watch even in the trailer, you'll hear that music. It's there, the orchestral
Mhm.
score. But there's a lot more in the movie. So he does that. My production manager was like chasing me. It's like, my cousin and I, we're doing like this music. Can you please use our music? I said, I don't know. It's like, we will write something like a brand new one. And he ended up writing a song called Angels, Angels, which is a hip hop rap song, but like, specifically clean lyrics and all of that. And it's in the movie. So I use his songs. And and like, it's just, people came to me. There was a guy that came to me and he says, then he looks at it, I said to him, can you do the color for me? And he says, I can do the color for you. That is not my strong point, but what about your visual effects? And I said to him, I don't have money. Everybody's quoting me like 7 million rand to do the visual effects. And he says, but I can do the visual effects. I said, I don't have the money to pay you. I can't even give you a little bit here. He said, I'll do it for you. You pay me afterwards. And it's like, wow. So the movie gets finished. There was a production company. I wanna mention their name, called Mushroom Media, who did the coloring for me and just helped me to get over the line. Big thanks to them. So the movie's now finished, right? I'm sending this movie to a streamer, one of the biggest, if not the biggest streamer in the world. They came back and said to me, they like the movie. However, this movie was made for a niche market and it doesn't align with our main titles. And I go like, okay, I see the main titles that you guys are making. And this was specifically the streamer management for Africa. So it was fine. Was disappointed that I couldn't sell it directly to them. But for me, it was always, as I was moving and walking along, it's like God opens the doors. He closes the doors according to his will. And that is something that I pray. So when a door closes, I know that God has bigger plans. When it opens, I know that is where I need to be. So I'm sitting, the movie's now finished. And I need marketing because now I need to go and put the movie out there myself. I'm sitting at a muck and bean in the Strand here in Cape Town with a potential investor. And he was telling me his sad story about how he lost everything. And I didn't know if I should be more depressed about my situation or the situation where he finds himself in. And but we're talking, a very, very nice guy. But we're the only people in this muck and bean, and we're talking. And an old couple walks into the muck and bean. And it's echoing because of this very empty muck and bean. So they could hear us clearly what we're talking about. And the older man comes over and he says to me, to both of us, are you guys talking about Jesus and about Christ or about Jesus? And then later on, he said, and about God, because you guys are using Jesus a lot here and you're using Jesus Christ a lot here. So we said, no, we are talking. Because I said, he said, I thought you guys are swearing as you're sitting here. So I felt I needed to just come in. And then he introduced him as a chaplain, which of course one of the reasons why he came to talk to us. He says he works as a chaplain at a prison in Pennsylvania. And he and his wife joined us there. And he then told us about how he left South Africa 17 years ago and to work there. basically doing missionary work, and how they saved for about 17 years just to buy tickets again to come and say hello to his 88-year-old mother, who was, I think, turning 88 in that month. And obviously, he didn't have a lot of money. He was working as a missionary at this prison. And a month later, he calls me and he says, God has put it on his heart that he needs to pay for the submissions of this movie to go to all these festivals. And he pays. In every festival where the movie was submitted, it won an award or a nominee, or was accepted at least as into the festival. And then I said to my son, we need to get the movie out there. Now we don't know the plan that God has for us always. So you take it step by step. What now? God is not talking, he's not giving direction. So let's build a VOD platform for this movie that we can own and not give it to somebody else that will take 70% of the money that comes in. So he tries the first time and he writes one and it wasn't the best. And then he tries a second time and that one was like, okay, so now we're going to release it on VOD. And just as we were about to release it on VOD, something happens that got me to send an email for I don't know how many times now to Ster-Kinekor, but this time to the CEO of Ster-Kinekor. And within an hour, his people came back. And within 72 hours, they had cinemas allocated for the movie. And within 5 days, the contract is signed. And you sit here, it's like, yo, when God is involved, when he does something, it happens and it's easy. It's not difficult. There's no complications.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe that it just happened like that because I was trying for more than almost 6 months to get to speak to some people. The same with New Metro. I tried to get to speak to some people and I just couldn't get through. And then one day, when I sent an email, I ended up speaking to one of the executives at New Metro. And within 30 minutes, there was a deal in place. And then the investor from 2021 tells me the story 3 months ago. He says, Robert, and I'm so thankful to him for never getting angry at me for what has happened and the fact that this movie was supposed to be finished within about a year and a half. And yeah, it's 4 years later, 4.5 years later, and I'm still trying to get this movie into the cinemas. He says to me, Robert, you know, when you came to see me and you talked to me, I signed the contract, I put the money into your bank account, but I never read the contract. He never read the contract. And I knew it was God, you know? He just put the money into my account, but he told me, and I thought, and over the last few years, I kept on telling him, you know, the only reason that I could make this movie is because you gave me that money, and if it wasn't for you, this movie would not have been made. So I truly believe that God sent you. But when he told me the story 3 months ago, that he didn't read the contract, but he put the money into my account to make this movie, I knew. But then I saw the picture of how God has brought so many people to come and help me to finish this movie to where we are today.
I
So
mean,
that
this is just
is,
it is an amazing testimony to just how God works in the lives of his children, you know, and when we actually just hand over our plans and say, Lord, your plans, not my plans. I recently made a video about, I titled it, God will use, I said, "O Here dien my," because that's what we do. We say, oh God, will you serve me? You know, will you give me
mm,
everything I want and need and ask for? You know, and we have this mentality, but it's the opposite. And while you were speaking, I thought about uh, this sentence. This sentence came into my head. So the boy who loves telling stories becomes the story. And that's you. You are the storyteller who became the story. And so your life has become the story of God's provision and goodness and faithfulness. And thank you for sharing that with us today, and for being raw and open and honest. And I know it's difficult. It's difficult to open those deep places and show people that. But I think that's why God gives us these moments in our life. Is there's this saying that says it is our story, or it's His story in our lives, but not for us, for others. So, what a privilege to be part of God's story to other people.
Yeah, I'm like, I just realized on other things that it just came through. I'm reminded now of the very last scene of the movie. We were shooting in KZN Midlands, and that is literally the day when I realized later the day that the money is not going to come from government. And on that same day, we had to shut down. But the morning when we were shooting, the people in KZN where we were shooting, they were saying to us, um, the weather changes very quickly. The chances of you getting sunlight this week, we don't know. It rains a lot here. And that whole week that we were in the Midlands, the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, is like the sun is shining. They couldn't believe it. Like 3 days in a row, no rain. And the Thursday morning, we're shooting the final scene. And there's this valley. And the idea was to have mist all over it. There's no money now. We don't have that kind of equipment to fill up that valley. So when we walked that morning, and it was dark when we walked onto the film set, and as the light came, the whole valley was full of mist. The whole valley. And we started shooting. And when we finished the last scene, the mist was lifting. The last shot, I mean, of the scene, the mist was lifting. And I go like, wow, my executive producer came through. You will, for those who will watch the movie, you'll see that Yahweh Sabaoth, the Lord of Hosts, I've credited him as Yahweh Sabaoth as the executive producer on my movie. Um, I can only give thanks for him to get us here, because how we got here was through miracles.
Robert, thank you so much for your testimony, and I look forward definitely to go and watch this movie. And I'm actually attending your premiere, which is fantastic. Thank you for the invitation.
Right?
And
Fantastic.
but yeah, definitely look forward to the movie, especially knowing that God is behind it and the story now behind it. Even more so, I'm excited, and I can't wait to share this with our viewers. And hey, if you've enjoyed this conversation, if you not just enjoyed it, but if it's added to your life, your understanding of how God works, and sometimes the sacrifices that God does require of us in obedience to Him, I want you to like and subscribe to the YouTube channel so that you can get more content, but also share this with someone. Go out and watch this movie so that it may bless you, because you can just imagine if God has done all of this to get this movie out into the public so that you can go and watch it. What are you going to gain from it? It remains to be seen. I definitely want to find out. Thank you.
Thank you.